Welcome to the Dateable AF podcast. I'm Dr. Sarah Kyle, a therapist in private practice.
And I'm Rachel Howell, a qualitative researcher.
Each week, we break down the emotional patterns behind dating, love, conflict, and connection, and what actually helps people build relationships that last. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 3, Episode 11 of the Dateable AF podcast. Today, our topic is great chat about you when people don't ask questions. Rachel's already laughing.
This is my pick for sure.
Yep. This topic was suggested by Rachel. Yep. So you've probably had this experience. I know you have recently, Rachel, that you spend a chunk of time talking to somebody, maybe 30, 40 minutes. And at the end of that conversation, you know everything about them. You know about their job, you know about their weekend, you know about their dog, you know their opinions about everything. And you're in it. You know, you're participating and responding and nodding and laughing. And then the conversation ends. And you realize that they never asked you one single question.
Lordy. And so I have people in my life, friends, and have been on dates that fall into several different categories of this activity. I have a dear friend who asks great questions, but she does not wait for the answer. Makes me insane, which means that she's not listening for the answer and she's thinking about the next question she wants to ask. So, and I'm just going to say for the audience, well, I have a couple of things to say as we kick things off. One is that if y'all are thinking I look like Gavin Newsom today, I kind of do. I slick my hair back, so I'm rocking my Gavin Newsom look. Thank you. And
so if you're just listening on audio, head on over to YouTube if you want to see Rachel's Gavin Newsom look.
I could be his twin sister right here.
We'll tag him. We're going to tag him in this podcast.
Yeah. Oh my God. And so then also I'm going to try not to be too over the top on this one, but I really am a little sensitive about this one at this point in time.
Well, I feel that you've had some recent experiences that have made you sensitive.
I have. Since I have been in the dating bee, so to speak, as Sarah used to call it, over time, I have had multiple variations of this. But the part on this that first catches my attention is this. If you ask a question, when someone asks one question and then immediately it turns into the conversation, it turns back to them.
Yes.
So they ask you a question, and you think, oh, they finally asked me a question. Okay. And you lean in, and you get about 3 words out, and the next thing you know, they've taken it, and they're running with it with some personal story.
Yep. Like, how was your weekend? Oh, well, let me tell you what I did this week. Yes, it happens all the time. I was curious, though, when you were talking about your friend who asks questions but then doesn't wait to hear the answer, what do you think's going on with that friend?
I think she likes to have her opinion heard about stuff. And so she's asking a question that she wants to expound on, I think, is part of it.
I was wondering, too, if she knows, like if she's socially aware enough to know that she's supposed to ask a question. So she does it, but it's kind of perfunctory.
I think she takes a lot of pride in her. And I will say, she's an excellent question asker. I mean, she has a great mind. She is good at asking the kind of questions that the average person might not come up with. So I love that. I just need a little time to answer the damn question one at a time.
Exactly. Yep. This is a surprisingly common social dynamic. People think that they're actually having a conversation with you, but they never really show any curiosity about the other person. This happens all the time. Joe and I will go to a party and we'll come, be reconvening after the party, and I'll say, "Oh, did you meet so and so?" And she'll say, "Yeah." Say, "Oh, did she tell you this and this and this?" And then we pause and we say, "What does that person know about us?" Like, nothing. Like, I know your dog's middle name and you literally don't know anything about me. And it just feels so out of balance.
It happens often, you're right, and it is so frustrating. Guys out there, I think about oh, there are a million things I wanna say about this topic. From a dating standpoint, I wanna say that if you walk away from a date, first or second date or whatever, and you think you've had a really great time because you've gotten to talk, because somebody has actually asked you a lot of really good questions, I want you to stop and consider whether or not you shared the floor. Did you find out as much about them as they found out about you? Or did you extend conversations? That's the other thing. It's not a fact-finding mission.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
you're not going down a checklist.
No, you're trying to play. It's a dynamic of what they say, and then they may ask you a question.
You're match.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. A good conversation has movement. It goes back and forth. It's literally like playing tennis. I'm going to hit the ball to you, and then I wait for you to hit the ball back to me. I don't pelt another ball at you. And I don't just stand there while you're pelting balls at me. Like, there's this rhythm of sharing and of asking questions and building, like you were just saying about extending the conversation. You want to build on what the other person says.
I recently have been in conversation with someone that I mentioned her before. Let's call her Veronica, just friend, but new friend to me. And what I love about, though, she gets very excited about what she's hearing. And so she tends to, and she loves detail. And so if you're telling her something, she gets really excited. And before you can finish, she wants to ask another thing. What I love is that she catches herself and she goes, "Oh," and stops, and goes, "Okay, I promise I won't say another word, but at the end, I'm going to need to know a little bit more."
So, I love that.
It's very cute because she's owning it. And
she's genuinely interested. You can tell.
She is. So as a friend, when I'm telling her something, I started going, "Well, the chair was pink and it was in the corner and it was surrounded by these walls." Okay, now the person was about to be murdered, but there were these walls and some nice lighting.
Yes. Yes.
Try to satisfy that level of detail.
I love that. But, curiosity is one of those signs that someone's really engaged. And I think that's what you're getting from her, that she wants more detail. She's genuinely curious.
I really do want to challenge our audience out there, especially our dating audience out there, to think about what it's like when you're on the first couple of dates, and really go home and think about what you talked about. And really think about what you think they walked away knowing from you versus knowing about you versus what you know about them.
Yeah.
In addition to the fact that, like, how much time you spent talking versus the time they spent talking.
Yeah, that's a really good one. And I would add that if that's out of balance either way, like we were just talking about, if you know 100 things about them and they know 0 things about you, that's also out of balance. Maybe you're asking too many questions, or you're not being interesting enough. And, maybe it's the fault of the other person that they're not curious and they're not asking you questions. But if you notice an imbalance on either side, you get to do some work to correct that imbalance. I also, and we may want to just come back around to this, but I was thinking as we were preparing for the show, you were talking about on the first or second date, but I was also thinking about how this works in our longer term relationships, either friendships or romantic partnerships. Because when I meet a new person, I think I do this really well because I'm genuinely curious. I don't know them. I'm asking questions. I'm not as good at it with the people that I'm close to because I assume we know each other well enough that you're going to tell me all the important stuff and I'm going to tell you the important stuff. And so I don't think I do it as well with my close friends or with Joe.
Really?
And so yeah.
I don't know. I mean, as your close friend, I would not, I don't have that experience with you. I actually have the opposite experience with you.
Okay. Well, thank you for saying that.
Uh-huh.
Because
So I don't know.
do I ask? Because you're really good at asking questions. And sometimes I'm like, I don't like, do I ask Rachel questions or do I ask Joe questions or, my other close people? I don't know. I think maybe sometimes I get lazy and don't do it as well. So it's not just something to be mindful of when you're dating.
I definitely can see people not keeping up with that inside their relationships, and their primary romantic relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just going to say that's just not at all my experience with you. So I don't know that you really do that as much with your friends as you think. I think you're really great at asking and you're good at listening.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
I get a lot of practice at that.
Yeah, you do.
I do that for a living.
Uh-huh.
Well, so why do you think that some people just don't realize that they're doing this? They're monopolizing a conversation or they're not asking questions.
The big one that jumps out at me is they're nervous and default to talking. And I will say in the audience of daters, I always, on a first date with someone, I'm always mindful of trying not to be overly critical, even though I can be frustrated in it because some people are more nervous at first round than others. And that I think for sure that can be the go-to, the default, just chattering because you're really nervous and probably maybe not at your best in conversation right off the bat if you're really nervous.
Yeah, that's a good point. That maybe it's not selfishness or lack of curiosity, but they're just nervous. Sometimes people think that sharing a story about themselves is the way that you connect with someone. And I think there's a grain of truth in that letting people see you and know you is a part of the connection, although it can't be the whole connection.
That was interesting to me when I was looking at that, because yes, it can be the information, I guess, the personal information that you share absolutely can be the connection. But this is, and I would love for you to help me tease this out because it's a little bit complicated. You don't want, or do you need to overshare personal information when you're first getting to know somebody? But you don't have to in order to have great conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes people think that they keep things very surfacey, thinking that because everything below that is personal. It's like, no, actually not. I mean, for me, it'd be like, Sarah, I know that you love CrossFit. If I was just meeting you for the first time, I'd probably say, hey, do you have hobbies?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not overly personal.
No.
And you might say to me, yeah, I'm actually really into CrossFit. I mean, the first question I'm going to have, because those people are beasts, I'm going to say, tell me what you love about that, because I'm afraid of it. And you could tell me something personal about it, but you could also just say it's the only form of exercise I've ever really loved, where I find community. I don't know. I mean, that's a good conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And it's not something like, we've kind of joked about this before, that you don't want to tell someone about your childhood abuse on your first date. That's not the kind of personal information we're talking about.
Exactly. So, and that doesn't have to be that.
Yeah, don't share your trauma. We're not talking about that. But some people grow up in families where conversation is kind of competitive or performative, that they're vying for their parents' attention or things like that. And I think maybe sometimes that gets in the way, that you feel like if you don't take up space that you're not going to get any, or I don't know, just not having that skill of being curious.
It does make you wonder if someone who talks a lot, like demands the floor a lot, if they don't ever get to talk enough to anybody else, or that they do. It's kind of like the never getting enough to eat, you know, you just jump in there and like eat all you can get while you can. It is like a
scarcity. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe
I
so.
don't know.
Sometimes too, people just assume that if you want to share something that you're going to jump in. And I think that's the one I was sort of talking about, that I'm guilty of that a little bit, that if something exciting happens to you, I think you're going to call me and tell me about it. And so I may not, when I see you after the weekend, I might not say, hey, did anything exciting happen this weekend? Because I figure if it did, you're going to tell me. And that's not always a safe assumption, because, you know, people like to be asked. They like it when you're curious.
They do. Look, I'm always sort of hoping sometimes that you and Joe don't ask me what I've been up to.
I busted you this last week asking you something, and you turned 10 shades of red, and you're like, don't ask me that.
Damn it to hell.
And sometimes I know something did happen, and I don't ask you because I'm just waiting you out to see if you're going to tell me about it. So don't think I'm not on to you about that.
I feel like sometimes with Sarah, well, I've got Sarah, she's like sneaky, hanging out around the corner, just waiting for me. She's gonna jump out. And Joe, on the other hand, she just jumps right in it. She's like, okay, what are you
Tell me what happened. Who'd you see? Who
are you doing?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
There can definitely be a social cost of not asking questions. Even if it's not intentional, I think the impact of not asking questions can be really significant. It can affect your relationships.
It does. And we've talked a lot about this. As you get older, you begin to really, I mean, I know for us, we do. And I know that I have other friends that feel this way. You are more discerning about how you spend your time. And you really begin to want to pick and choose people and social settings that are pleasing, that are stimulating. And then I think that people, like you said, people who abuse your listening ear they're more likely to get pushed to the back burner. If you've got a lot of occasions, you're going to say no to that one because you're not getting any energy from it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what happens is you walk away feeling unseen, and you feel like that other person wasn't really interested in you. And over time, it takes a toll, and it makes you not want to be around that person. It makes people stop opening up around you. And I think, you know, your partner can start to feel emotionally lonely if you don't ask them questions, and that you don't ever really deepen the connections that you're forming with people.
You mentioned a little bit of this, and I think it's good to keep at the forefront of this topic is sort of with your really good friends or with your romantic partner, assuming what you think you know about where they are, what they're doing, or what they're enjoying, just because you know them well. And I've had what I've noticed as the podcast, especially when our focus has been on women dating women and me being a dater. And some of the women that I have dated have actually listened to the podcast. And what I noticed is that, like, I had a woman say to me one time, well, I'm not asking you anything about that because I already know it, because you say it on the podcast.
They think that's all there is to you, is whatever you reveal on the podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going, really? I mean, I do talk about personal things on here. I am pretty open, but God help me if that's all there is to me here.
Right.
It's what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. You got a lot more than 35 minutes a week worth of material.
Oh, I got you. You got that right, sister love.
I can vouch for that. So obviously, well, let me just go back to saying being curious with people is one of the main ways that we let them know that they matter to us. And so just remember that and this isn't being perfunctory and asking a question, but it is letting yourself be genuinely curious and letting your questions flow from that. That shows care. And obviously, this pattern is especially noticeable in early dating. Like you said, first or second date, somebody's not asking you questions. But you might think that someone is really appealing or charming or engaging. And then you kind of step back and realize, they were kind of charming, but they talked all about themselves. That's not going to go very far.
We've mentioned this about being curious. We mention it over and over again because it's incredibly important. I have had various conversations with people who I know are regular listeners to this podcast, and there's some aspect of this is just not sticking. So I think, Sarah, we need to give an example of what we mean by asking a question and then taking that question, the answer, and bringing it back to you. And basically you're hijacking the person's opportunity.
Okay. I feel like we can play this one out really well. So you go first.
Okay. I got to think of something.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Hey, how was your weekend?
It was great. I had social time, which was really nice. Went to a new book.
Oh my God. Me too. I had social time. My friend was in town. And I went to a book club too. And yeah, it was at my house and all these people came over. We had a great discussion about the book. And then after that, my best friend and I went shopping and yep.
Yeah.
So listeners, did you see how that just happened? That I asked Rachel about her weekend. I didn't care. I wasn't listening. I just couldn't wait to tell her about my weekend. That is not being curious.
I'm mad at you now.
Exactly.
It was very frustrating. And
yeah.
I booked my new book club opportunity.
Exactly.
But yes, that was a great role play because that is exactly what we're talking about is what would have been great. As I said, I had enough social time. I went to a book club. On the flip side of that, would have been nice. Oh, what did y'all read?
What was your book club book? And then you can tell me about your book club book. And after I've heard the answers, then I can say, it's so interesting that you said that because I went to a book club this weekend too. But the key to that is that I want to really listen to your answers. I want to pay attention to what you did this weekend. And then it does feel joining if after that I say, oh, now that I've heard your answer, I want you to know I had a similar experience.
Right. And I could say to her, we just can't drive this home enough. I could say, tell me about the structure of your book club because I've been in a couple. Tell me more about your structure on your book club. You might say, blah, blah, blah. I'd say, wow, that's interesting because I've been in some that I didn't like and some that I didn't.
And then the way the tennis game works is that I bat that ball back to you and say, is that similar to the structure of your book club? Tell me about how do you guys structure it?
Right. So yeah, there were like 3 questions in there where we were really batting the tennis ball equally. I could have right at the get-go gone with, oh, I had book club too.
Right. And then the conversation stops because we're back to it just being about one person. So if you don't have a clear picture of this, just write to us. We'll help you. Don't you worry. We can help you with this. Because when your curiosity starts to wane in a relationship, the connection fades too. And that could happen on date number 1, or that could happen 5 years in, but you don't want to lose the spark of curiosity that you have for a person.
No doubt.
Well, let's talk about what some healthy curiosity might look like. I can say what it doesn't look like because I have some folks in my life that do this interrogation thing. Like, Hey, Sarah, how are you? How are the kids? How's your job? How's work going? How, that is not satisfying. And that person, you can tell they do not give two shits about the answer.
Mm-hmm. That's cocktail party talk. That's you. You're going to pass through the room.
Yep.
And you are on the move and you are going to say 2 or 3 things to somebody because you plan to move on.
Yes.
But if
And
you're doing that with somebody you care about, it's insulting.
Yeah, it's like you have a clipboard and you have a list of questions that you're supposed to ask them. And it's like that's not the same thing. How was your day? That's not a real, you're not waiting with bated breath for the answer to that question. So, what was the best part of your day today? That's a real question. That gives you some sort of meat to answer. So mostly you just want to make sure you're paying attention and that you're inviting the other person in.
So some great hints of starters for our audience be things like, what was that like for you?
Oh, that is such a good question. Yep. So when you say, oh, I had some social time this weekend, I could say, oh, what was that like for you? Because maybe you hate social time and it was terrible, or maybe you love social time and it was super fulfilling. But asking an open-ended question, that is such a good one.
And I do love the tell me more about that. And you use that one. It always catches my attention because I really like it. If I'm saying something to you, you always get my attention when you say to me, so tell me more about that. Because it's typically me saying to you, gosh almighty, I got so frustrated about something and I feel like I messed it up or whatever. And that's what you do often is you'll say that. And I think, okay, that's great because it does a couple of things. One is you're leaning into the conversation with me. You're not just going, oh, that sounds shitty. It also tends to stop me. I've noticed it stops me and go, I think about how I felt about it.
Yeah.
And I like that,
Yeah. Yep. So tell me more about that is a really good one. Another question I like is, how did you decide that? This is a good replacement for why. Like, why did you do that? That's going to put people on the defensive and probably not get a great answer. But if you say, how'd you decide that? I'll give you an example. So let's say your friend gets a new car and you're like, well, why'd you pick that car? That sounds rude. Like you don't like their car or you're questioning their decision, but like, oh, how did you decide on the, Toyota instead of the Honda? That's asking about their process and showing that you're really interested.
I like it.
Yep. Another question you can ask is, what do you think about that now? Like if somebody's telling you about something that happened in the past or something that upset them, you can ask, okay, now that you've had some time, what do you think about it now? These small questions really signal that you're interested in someone and it signals openness.
Yeah, I recently had an interaction with somebody where the day I was with them, they had a really big thing happen, like a career-altering moment. And they told me all about it at the time. But then the next morning, what I did say to them, because I wanted to acknowledge that they had had a big career-altering moment, but my question was, how did you wake up feeling about that this morning once you had time to sort of sit on that? Because I feel like there was those things can either make you really feel great and you're super happy in the moment, or you could be really bummed and mad in the moment. But oftentimes you're going to have residual, like different feelings about them. Once you've had some silence, you're by yourself and you've had time to process it.
Yeah. That interaction, I think I can see 2 really positive things about that. One, you let your friend know that you were still thinking about this the next day, that you had gone away from that conversation and still thought about her and you were still thinking about it the next morning. And that's so valuable that you didn't just hear this big news and walk away from it. You gave it some thought. And then the other thing is you invited her back into a conversation with you. You didn't just send a, hey, thinking about you text. You were like, hey, I've really been thinking about this and I'm curious to know how you woke up feeling. So that was a really valuable exchange.
Yes. Thank you.
So if you're even slightly concerned that you might be this person who doesn't ask questions or who talks too much about yourself, how, Rachel, can our audience sort of check themselves and reflect on their own habits?
You can ask yourself, what did I learn about the other person? Just simply do a little bit of a check-in at the end of the evening when you're by yourself and see if you feel like you learned as much from them as they learned about you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I also just think about the questions. Did I ask questions that showed interest in their experience? And I think it's not only the asking the questions, but really listening to them and not thinking about how you're going to respond or what your answer is going to be until it naturally comes from the ball being volleyed back to you. It naturally comes to you because you're leaning into what they're saying.
Yes. Yeah. In general, I think asking yourself, did that conversation feel balanced? I don't know, though. I think that is a good question to ask yourself. But if you're someone who monopolizes or doesn't ask questions, you might not be objective and you might think it felt balanced. So I like your questions better. What did I learn about the other person? And did I ask questions that showed interest in their experience?
Exactly. I think if you are someone that talks a lot, you may walk away thinking you had a very equal experience. So I hope that you will listen to this podcast. I think we are giving you a lot of nuggets of ways to measure if you really are in balance with conversation or it just feels good to you. And because it feels good to you, because you talked a lot about your experiences, it's balanced. No, it's not.
Yeah, exactly. Good. If you think back to the people that you think are the best conversationalists that you know, they are not the most interesting talkers. Good conversationalists are never the most interesting talkers. They are the most curious listeners. So if there is one takeaway from this that we want y'all to get, it is that good conversationalists are the most curious listeners. So put that in your pocket, folks.
There's no better way to say it.
Yep. Ask better questions. If you need help, message us. Well, if you are listening to this and this has sparked some curiosity in you, I would really encourage you to call your friend, talk to your partner, call up your family member, and ask them this. When we have conversations together, do we feel like there's equal curiosity about each other's experiences? So that's kind of your prompt for discussing this outside of the episode. Ask some people in your lives. How do they feel about the reciprocity of the conversations? And really be open to listening to the answer.
Yep.
All right, let's wrap this up. If today's episode sparked something from you, we really love hearing from you. So please message us. You can reach us by email, info@dateableaf.com, or connect with us on Instagram @dateableaf. And if this conversation made you think of someone in your life, that might be kind of awkward to send it to them because then they might realize that you think they're not very curious, but share this podcast with people. That's how our Dateable AF community grows, and we really want it to continue growing. As always, we want to thank you for listening to the Dateable AF podcast, where we help you find your happy ending.
And remember, be bold, be kind, and for the love of self-respect, don't text your ex. Stay dateable.
AF.